Ellis County. Kevin Crouch here, and I wanted to bring you an update on the potential severe weather situation we're looking at for later today. This is the first of these updates that I've done so far this season, and I think that it could be really our first opportunity to see severe weather in our particular area for the spring season. We just haven't seen it yet, right? We've had a few kind of close calls, and they just didn't really materialize into anything. But I think this time we have a chance to actually see some severe weather in our area. If you look at radar right now, nothing really going on. We take a broader view. There's really nothing happening right now, and it's going to be like that most of the day. Okay, most of the day is going to be pretty quiet. Not a whole lot happening in our particular area. We're going to see storms fire up to our west later today. And that is going to be, we'll look at kind of model guidance, but it looks like it's going to be after rush hour, right? Probably, well, I say that, maybe on the back end of rush hour, we're probably looking at around 5 or 6 o'clock to see the first inklings of this activity. Let's go over to some of the graphics that you've already seen before. First of all, I just want to talk about you know what? Let's go ahead and go to kind of visually what to expect. So let's look at a couple of models. I don't usually do stuff like this, right? I don't like to publish models and post those things and get everybody really excited. Really, that's the time that's most concerning, I think, and the most tricky to do is when there's winter weather involved, right? Because models go crazy when there's winter weather, and people grab models that show this catastrophic situation going on, and that happens in severe weather season some too. But I think that since we're about 4, 5, 6 hours away from this happening, we're seeing some consensus. So I think it's an okay deal for me to go ahead and show some of this to you. So this is the high resolution rapid refresh model, and this is going to take us just kind of through the day. And it looks like that's the 15Z is not ready. It's just now running. So let's do the fourth. This is hourly updated. Okay, let's do the hour before that. So let's go through here, and here's this development. Now let's take this back a slide. And so if you see it's 6 o'clock today, now something to remember, and Evan Andrews over at Fox 4 did a good job of reminding folks of this morning. So it reminded me to remind you that this does not show exactly where storms are going to pop up, right? This does not mean that a storm is going to pop up right between Waxahachie and Palmer, right? This is a general picture of what the the outlook will look like, kind of the landscape, if you will look like. Basically, isolated thunderstorms popping up across the areas. What this is trying to communicate, primarily over the southern and eastern kind of quadrant of North Texas, which is consistent with what we've been expecting. So at this point, now what's interesting here is that most of the convection is starting right along I-35E, okay? So Ellis County, down to Navarro County, down to McLennan County here, down to Killeen, and onward. So that's one model's opinion. It changes a little bit depending on what you're looking at. If we go into let's look at the one before that. So this is 5 o'clock, not expecting much. 6 o'clock, bam, right? We are capped. And so as the cap erodes, at some point it will erode enough to allow storms to develop. And that's when we'll really start to see things happen. We go to 7 o'clock, and there's more convection, and you notice there's some maybe a little bit back to the west, and I think what this model is trying to convey is that this first round of storms, you can see they're pretty intense. We'll move further off to the east, and these are kind of the individual storms, right? These are the ones that you really have to watch, because those are going to be the ones that get larger hail, a bigger tornado threat, sometimes stronger downburst and microburst winds than when you have a solid line. So these individual storms, and then back to the west, if we look at the next one here, you can see the storms off to the east kind of start to congeal, and then here you have more of a linear kind of system from Dallas on up to the Red River. And so I think what it's trying to say is that, the expectation, it's a realistic expectation that we will see a few isolated storms before they congeal into a linear system. And as you can see, off to the east, it is a much more organized system. That's the high-resolution rapid refresh. Let's go over to the NAM, okay? Let's go over and see what the NAM thinks. It's going to be pretty similar with a little bit of difference, a little bit of kind of difference of opinion as we go through the day. And here is the beginnings of this development. Again, 6 o'clock. So this is saying that it's going to be a little bit further west, okay? And there's different outcomes that are possible with these different scenarios. So you go from the Red River all the way down to the Hamilton area. And of course, we've always joked that Hamilton, right, is kind of the storm factory for us, right? Everything develops in Hamilton and then heads to the northeast. So as you can see, this model is expecting a little bit more linear development through really the western parts of North Texas. Again, this does not mean that a storm is going to happen exactly in this spot or exactly over Mansfield or exactly over Rio Vista. It's, Rio Vista, I've heard it both ways, don't at me. So this is what we're seeing from this model. Now, if we go forward an hour on this model, you see, again, a much more linear system here that starts making its way through North Texas with some showers and thunderstorms in East Texas. But this is thinking, the NAM is thinking that we will see a much more linear system through North Texas. And again, here it's just a solid line that's going to push east and go on from there. So the models are in a little bit of disagreement, right? And I don't think that there's enough disagreement for us to really change anything in terms of the forecast. Regardless of which of these scenarios happen, we are looking at a potential for severe weather, and it does look like hail will be our primary concern today. There is a bit of a low-end tornado threat. I don't think that we're looking at widespread tornadoes or anything. Storm chasers were getting really excited on Twitter this morning, but just know that it's early in the season, and any kind of indication of anything at all is going to get them excited, right? So, that's just the way things are. If we look at the satellite this morning, we're looking at clouds across the area. Let's zoom out so that's not quite as grainy. You can see clouds across North Texas, but back behind that, it does clear out, and we will most likely get these clouds out of the way in time for storm development. And as you've heard me say before, once the sun comes out, you start really bringing in that heating that really starts to develop that storm food, if you will, those ingredients that storms want present. And I do believe that we could be looking at some sun before we get the storms in here. So, it's 11 o'clock now as I'm filming this. And, I think as we get to 1, 2, 3 o'clock, we'll probably start to clear out much more and, get some heating in here, which will set the stage for a more unstable atmosphere, which sets the stage for more storms. Let's go back to radar, and with that kind of layout, I do want to show you the Storm Prediction Center's risk areas as far as what we're seeing for later today and kind of their thinking. So generally, this is what we're, of course, all used to seeing. Overall, so this is the slight risk area. So as you can see, it goes from Fort Worth down to Cleburne, down to Hillsboro, and down to Waco. That's kind of the back edge of this. And again, the models have said that development will happen somewhere in the I-35 corridor. Will that happen on 35 West or 35 East? That's kind of the disagreement. But whether it is or not, this is a pretty accurate setup for where to expect the strongest storms. So it develops somewhere in the I-35 corridor and then pushes east. So, yeah, it makes sense. Now, what's important, and the distinction between the two models and what will be important to monitor as this starts to develop is how long do we see small independent storms, those independent cells move through? Because if we don't have those independent cells and it's just a straight line, then that could help to somewhat mitigate our hail threat. If we do have those individual storms, more of a hail threat, possibly more of a tornado threat. Something I did want to show, and again, these are not something I typically lean on a lot, but I do want to show just a couple of things. First, let's show that tornado threat. And if you see this is what all the storm chasers were excited about, right? This from McKinney including parts of Ellis County on down to Palestine, Jacksonville, Nacogdoches, down to Lufkin, almost down to College Station here. This is kind of the area where you're probably looking at the highest tornado threat. Now, it's not an especially high tornado threat. It's still a low-end threat, but if there is an area, it does include here. But you notice this green area does go back to really where the slight risk starts, okay? And I think the reason they did that was because we do have that potential to have those individual storms where you could have more rotation. And once the storms get really into this, especially east of Ellis County, east of Kaufman and Corsicana, then we're really looking probably at more of a straight line. So I think that may turn into more of a QLCS, a quasi-linear tornado threat, quasi-linear convective system, which is, again, those straight line, that kind of that squall line that we talked about with the straight line winds on the last Wild Weather Wednesday segment. As that moves on, I think that's going to be possibly more of what we're looking at, but those individual storms, and not to say that we also could see some individual storms this afternoon in this area, but if we do have a tornado threat with that main line tonight, probably going to be more of those brief spin-up QLCS tornadoes. Now, what I really want to emphasize here, and has really been emphasized across most folks, is the hail threat, okay? And we're seeing something a little bit different here. So you can see there's a marginal hail threat as far back as, Hood County, Parker County, on down to Bosque County here, and, down to Temple and Round Rock almost. But if you notice here in the slight risk area from Fort Worth down to Cleburne, Hillsborough, parts of McLennan County, we have kind of this yellow area, which is a little bit of a heightened risk. Now, you see this black area here. This is etched out. This is where large hail, or at least hail in general, is especially possible, or really where the greatest concern area is going to be. So as you can see, it goes from the Red River on down to Plano, McKinney, Dallas, Waxahachie, Ellis County right here, Corsicana, Mejia, Palestine, Jacksonville. These are the areas where we could see the highest hail threat. And again, the hail threat is going to be highest where we can get those individualized storms, those individual cells, where those updrafts can really power those raindrops back up into the storm. Excuse me, and we have colder air aloft, okay? So it's not going to take a whole lot to create hailstones, which means it won't take a whole lot more to create large hailstones. I've heard today that we could be, I think Evan was saying this morning, did a good job of communicating that we were primarily looking at lime size. 2 inches in diameter is really kind of where the Storm Prediction Center is capping that. So, yeah, lime size, small apple size hail is possible in the strongest storms. Now, this does not mean everybody's going to see hail, okay? By no means does that mean everybody's going to see hail, but that is our primary concern today, and the conditions do seem pretty ripe for some hail development later today. So I want to get over to the graphics here. So here's where this translates over to my stuff, what I've put together. As you can see, I have here the slight risk, and that is the overall SPC outlet. You can see the map here. And as you see here, a low tornado threat, okay? So a low tornado threat, and I put damaging winds at kind of a moderate threat, okay? And really, whether we get the individualized storms or the squall line that moves through that quasi-linear convective system, either one of those, we have a hail threat, okay? Because, now, it may be kind of a different animal. If we get a squall line, it may be those winds on the leading edge. If we get the individual storms, it may be downburst winds, microburst winds. So either way, we have a decent chance at seeing some pretty strong winds. I did put the hail threat as high, and that may seem to some like it's a little bit of, like I'm kind of hyping this a little bit. I really don't think so, because as we saw, the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center, and as far as I can tell, the Dallas meteorologists, pretty much it's across the board that hail is our primary concern today. And that high, I'm pretty much saying any hail at all. Now, do I think there's a high probability that everybody's going to get 2-inch hail? Absolutely not. But I think it is a pretty decent chance that we could see some hail out of probably most of the storms that we see today, especially if that high resolution rapid refresh model is a little bit more accurate in terms of getting those individual storms. So let's just go to the forecast here. And obviously today, a lot going on. Cold front moving in tonight with the severe weather possible later today. Overall, it says a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms. If the NAM model is more accurate and we get a squall line through here, we're probably going to see 100% coverage of rain. Unfortunately, it won't be a whole lot of rain. This is not going to be a big rain event. We're not really going to put a whole lot of a dent in the drought situation. But it is looking windy today with highs in the 70s, low 70s. And then, of course, that cold front's going to come in and kind of cool us down a little bit, and we'll be looking at highs in the upper 60s tomorrow with more windy conditions. You see that most of these days are windy here, and since we won't really get rid of the drought conditions, it's still going to be dry. We still need to keep in mind that there is a burn ban in Ellis County, and try not to really burn anything at all if we can avoid it, because windy conditions, dry ground, not a good thing. We have another chance of rain coming in on Thursday. It does not look like this is going to be a major rain event. Some of the communication from National Weather Service does seem to suggest that we could have more of a chance of getting some decent rain out of this, but we'll have to watch and see over the next few days what that's going to look like. Generally, though, the week is pretty nice. Highs are going to be in the upper 60s, low to mid 70s. Sunday, we're reaching for 80 degrees. So overall, pretty nice week, and spring is definitely here. And unfortunately, that does mean spring storms. So stick around throughout the day. I'm going to be bringing more updates on this. This is what I have for you right now. And we're going to have more information on this throughout the day. I don't know if I'll probably make another video this afternoon before we get underway. But just know that 4, 5, 6 o'clock, I'm going to be pretty well glued to the computer here, watching for updates and continuing to monitor what, again, could be our first real severe weather situation this season. So make sure you're following on Facebook as well as YouTube for all the latest updates there. Make sure you have elliscountyweather.com accessible too, just for the latest forecast information, and of course the latest severe weather analysis will be posted there too. But really, on days like this, your best bet is the Facebook page. You go watch the latest updates there, because I'm not posting every single update on the website. The minute-to-minute stuff, that's going to be best on Facebook. But the website is great if you want to have a quick reference for the forecast. You do not have to want to go find the timeline through Facebook and everything. Put the website on your phone on the home screen, or bookmark it on your computer. It's really easy to get to. The forecast is always just right there. So thank you so much for watching. I'll have more updates throughout the day.